In the vast savannas of Masai Mara, a secret had remained hidden for years. A young lion, abandoned to his fate, was left to face the relentless dangers of the African wilderness. When Notch gathered his sons to form the legendary coalition that became a milestone in lion history, one cub was left behind. He stayed with his mother, sisters, and aunts, helpless and at the mercy of a new dominant lion that had taken control of the pride. Against all odds, this cub survived. He grew up to become Earless, one of the most powerful and feared lions of his lineage, surpassing even the renowned sons of Notch. Today, we delve into this fascinating story that left its mark on the African savannas. Get ready for an emotional journey. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It's simple, quick, and helps us continue bringing you amazing content. The first rays of sunlight appeared on the horizon, painting the vast plains of the savanna in golden hues. The distant sound of a river broke the morning silence as small groups of animals awoke to a new day. It was a scene of apparent serenity, but the marks left on the ground told stories of recent battles. In the distance, a solitary lioness walked with determined steps. Her eyes, sharp and watchful, scanned the horizon. Behind her, 3 cubs stumbled on their fragile legs, struggling to keep up with their mother's pace. Among them, a smaller and more delicate male seemed to fight with every step, displaying a silent determination that belied his frail appearance. At that same moment, a coalition of lions was on the move elsewhere in the savanna. Big, imposing, and scarred, they were led by a veteran whose name resonated like a legend, Notch. Alongside him were 5 young males, strong and ambitious, following him like shadows, each with a look filled with the desire to dominate. However, as Notch and his coalition left their territory to claim new lands, something was left behind. Among the abandoned prides, which no longer sparked interest, there was a cub whom even the lions didn't deem significant. He didn't know it yet, but he carried within him a legacy that would change his life and the lives of those around him. Days passed slowly for the small family left behind. Without the protection of the coalition males, the lioness mother faced the challenge of feeding her cubs and shielding them from constant dangers. While the older lionesses were seen as targets for new dominant lions, the cubs were even more vulnerable. It was common for newcomers to eliminate young ones to ensure the propagation of their own lineage. The mother knew this. With the young male always by her side, she avoided the most exposed areas and hunted at night, using the cover of darkness as her ally. The nights were short, and the weight of exhaustion grew heavier each day, but she remained steadfast. Her cub, still small and fragile, couldn't grasp the magnitude of his mother's sacrifice. But every time she returned with food, he looked at her with bright eyes filled with gratitude. One morning, the scent of a new lion carried on the wind. The lionesses of the pride grew tense. The few who remained retreated in silence, avoiding drawing attention. The young male, curious and innocent, took a step forward but was quickly pulled back by his mother, who pushed him into a small thicket of bushes. He watched as the new lion approached. He was an enormous male with a dark mane and cold eyes. His gaze swept over each lioness as if evaluating the territory he had just claimed. Despite her fear, the mother stood her ground. She knew she had to protect her cub at all costs. For days, she managed to keep him hidden, moving him to different spots whenever danger seemed near. Over time, the new dominant began to lower his guard. The lionesses who entered estrus quickly became his primary focus. Taking advantage of these moments of distraction, the mother started to reintroduce the cub to the group, slowly allowing him to reintegrate without arousing suspicion. The cub began to grow. His once fragile body started to develop firm muscles, and his hesitant posture transformed into one of confidence. He observed everything around him. Every movement, every sound, every interaction among the lions was a lesson for him. Even in silence, he was learning. As months passed, the young lion, now named Earless, began to stand out in the group. Despite being younger and smaller than the others, there was something different about him, an unwavering determination. His mother, ever watchful, taught him everything she could. He observed the lionesses during hunts, their calculated movements and teamwork. Most importantly, he began studying the new dominant. Every step, every gesture, and every strategy the dominant used was carefully analyzed. Earless didn't realize it yet, but his constant learning was preparing him for something greater. While the other cubs played innocently, he trained in silence. He tested his strength against small animals and ran long distances to build endurance. The dominant tolerated his presence, perhaps seeing him only as a harmless young lion. It was a mistake he would soon regret. When Earless reached puberty, everything changed. His muscles became prominent, and his mane began to emerge. He was no longer an unassuming cub. The leader started to watch him differently. Tension grew with every interaction. The lionesses noticed the change as well. Earless wasn't just another lion in the pride. He was beginning to stand out as a potential leader. One day, during a hunt, Earless showcased his skills by single-handedly taking down a large antelope. The lionesses were impressed, and even the leader seemed surprised. However, this only increased the dominant's unease. He knew Earless was growing too fast and would soon become a rival. The first conflicts arose shortly after that hunt. Earless attempted to approach one of the females in estrus, but was immediately driven away by the dominant. Instead of retreating, Earless held his head high, showing he wouldn't be intimidated. This silent confrontation was only the beginning of a greater battle. The following days were marked by subtle disputes. The dominant asserted his authority whenever possible, but Earless began testing the limits. He knew he wasn't ready for a direct confrontation yet, but also understood he needed to bide his time. Meanwhile, he continued training, strengthening his body and sharpening his skills. The opportunity to change his fate came during a quiet night. The younger lionesses had entered estrus, and Earless saw his chance to act. While the leader rested, Earless approached one of the females and began courting her. The leader, noticing the move, charged at him in a fit of rage. The ensuing fight was intense but brief. Earless, still young, lacked the strength to defeat the leader, but his agility and skill at dodging impressed the lionesses and made it clear that he was no longer an adversary to be ignored. After that night, the atmosphere within the pride changed. Earless began to be seen as a potential successor. The younger lionesses started gravitating toward him, drawn by his strength and confidence. The leader, on the other hand, grew increasingly uneasy. He knew it was only a matter of time before he was challenged. The final battle between the two came with the force of a storm. It was a hot afternoon, and the pride rested under the shade of a few trees. The leader, now constantly wary, never took his eyes off Earless. When the young lion approached one of the lionesses, the leader wasted no time. He charged with all his might, determined to end the threat once and for all. The confrontation was brutal. Roars echoed across the savanna, startling the surrounding animals. Earless used everything he had learned, every movement studied, every lesson from his observations. The leader, older and more experienced, had strength on his side, but Earless countered with speed and strategy. The battle stretched into the night, leaving both lions exhausted. However, Earless found a determination within himself that went beyond physical strength. He knew this was his only chance. With a precise blow, Earless finally brought the leader down. The old dominant, wounded and defeated, retreated. The pride watched in silence as Earless assumed his position as the new king. He had not only won, he had earned everyone's respect. Earless' reign began with an unexpected act. Instead of killing the defeated leader, he allowed the former king to leave the pride peacefully. This act of mercy did not go unnoticed. The lionesses saw him not only as a strong leader but also as a just one. It was the beginning of a new era. In the months that followed, Earless consolidated his rule. He expanded the pride's territory and formed alliances with other lions, including a powerful ally named Boxer. Together, they became a feared force, conquering more lands and establishing a reign marked by strength and strategy. Earless proved himself a leader worthy of his legacy. Even without having lived alongside Notch, he carried the same determination and power that made his father a legend. His name, like Notch's, would echo across the savanna for years to come. The first months of Earless' reign were filled with challenges and triumphs. Now the leader of a strong and united pride, he had to ensure the territory was secure, the lionesses were protected, and the cubs could grow without external threats. Though young, Earless displayed a natural talent for leadership, something that seemed ingrained in his blood. The Savanna was a contested land, and Earless knew he needed to expand his domain to ensure his pride's survival. During regular patrols, he began exploring neighboring territories. On one of these expeditions, he encountered Boxer, a strong lion who had recently lost his pride in a fierce battle. Initially, the two faced off in a fierce exchange of roars and threats, but they quickly realized they would be stronger together. Boxer was a born fighter, and his presence brought a new dynamic to Earless' pride. Combining their forces, the two began conquering nearby territories. Each victory further solidified Earless' dominance and strengthened the alliance between the two lions. The pride's lionesses accompanied them on their ventures, showing that the strength of a leader lay not only in his ability to fight, but also in his capacity to inspire others to follow. As his territory grew, so did the threats. A coalition of 3 young lions had formed along the borders of his domain. Though inexperienced, these lions possessed something Earless recognized: ambition. He knew that if he didn't deal with them swiftly, they could become a much bigger problem in the future. One morning, as the Savanna was still shrouded in mist, Earless and Boxer led an assault on the intruders. The battle was intense. The young lions fought with determination, but they were unprepared to face the combined experience and strength of Earless and Boxer. After a grueling fight, the intruders were driven away, though not without leaving a mark. Earless sustained deep injuries in one of his hind legs, forcing him to rest for weeks. During his recovery, the lionesses took on a more active role in protecting the territory, demonstrating that the pride had become a cohesive unit. Boxer, meanwhile, remained vigilant, guarding the borders while Earless healed. This period of vulnerability further strengthened the bonds within the group. Over the years, Earless transformed his pride into more than just a survival unit. He built an empire. His victories were celebrated, and his leadership was respected. The name Earless became synonymous with strength and strategy. Reserve workers observing his activities often commented on how he seemed to carry the spirit of his father, Notch. One of his most notable strategies was building alliances with neighboring prides. Instead of waging unnecessary battles, Earless used his intelligence to negotiate. With promises of mutual protection and shared hunting grounds, he created a network of allies that made his empire nearly impenetrable. Boxer became his right-hand lion in this endeavor. The two were often seen patrolling together, their imposing figures inspiring both respect and fear in those who dared challenge their authority. Earless knew that maintaining his legacy required loyal allies and a solid structure capable of withstanding the test of time. As Earless consolidated his rule, life within the pride followed its natural course. New cubs were born, and Earless proved to be a protective but fair father. He allowed young males to remain in the pride until they reached maturity, at which point they were encouraged to seek their own paths. This balance helped maintain harmony within the group. Yet Earless knew peace was never eternal. The Savanna operated in cycles of rise and fall, and eventually, he too would face a challenge. This awareness didn't weaken him. On the contrary, it fueled his resolve to cherish every moment as a leader and ensure his legacy would be remembered. Time passed, and Earless began to feel the first signs of aging. His battles over the years had left scars on his body, but they had also forged a wise and respected leader. However, his position was once again threatened, this time by 2 young and strong males who arrived in the Savanna with the goal of taking control. Earless, now more experienced, knew that brute force alone would not be enough to win this battle. He used his cunning, strategically positioning his pride and leveraging the terrain to his advantage. Boxer, as loyal as ever, fought by his side, and together they faced the invaders in a fight that would be remembered for generations. The battle was long and exhausting, but Earless emerged victorious once again. However, the cost was high. He suffered severe injuries that left him weakened. Boxer, realizing the gravity of the situation, assumed active leadership of the pride while Earless recovered. The final years of Earless' life were marked by a more passive role. He watched as Boxer led the Pride with the same determination that had united them years before. Though older and slower, Earless remained an inspiring presence. The lionesses and young males of the Pride continued to respect him, and his name echoed across the Savanna as a living legend. When Earless finally disappeared into the vastness of the Savanna, his legacy endured. He was not just a leader. He was a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and strength. His reign was not merely about domination, but about building something greater, something that would stand the test of time. Boxer, now the sole leader, carried on Earless' work, further expanding the territory and protecting the Pride. The descendants of Earless carried his bloodline and, with it, the promise to keep alive the flame of the empire he had built. Earless was not just a survivor. He was living proof that strength lies not only in muscle but also in mind and spirit. From an abandoned cub living in the shadow of his legendary father, he rose to become one of the most respected and feared leaders in the African Savanna. His journey, marked by challenges and triumphs, is a testament to the power of resilience and determination. Even in the face of adversity, Earless built a legacy that echoed beyond the horizons of the Savanna. His name was etched in history not just as the son of Notch, but as a king who shaped his own destiny. The Savanna, a witness to his journey, will forever hold the marks of his paw prints and the roar that announced his presence to the world. Hey everyone, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. It's quick and easy, and it really helps us out. See you in the next video. Big hugs to all of you.